On Halloween, the streets are filled with ghosts and goblins and vampires. But Sightings has discovered that at least some of those vampires aren't out there dressing up for just one holiday. We found people who are so obsessed with vampires that they've chosen to live as though they are real-life vampires. Do vampires really exist? Bela Lugosi's theatrical vision of the vampire debuted in the film classic Dracula. Lugosi is the most popular image that we have of the nocturnal beast that preys on the living. Our reaction is a mixture of fascination and revulsion as Dracula thirsts for human blood.
Let me live, please! Punish me, torture me, but let me live!
Bram Stoker's Dracula from Francis Ford Coppola is the newest of nearly 2,000 Dracula movies produced worldwide, evidence of our continuing fascination with the undead.
The undead would be someone who is pronounced dead, and at certain times the dead corpse reanimates and goes out with a thirst for human blood.
Recent studies by researchers at 2 major universities in the United States show that nearly half the adult population of the United States believe that the world of the undead, in some form, is real. And that same research shows that our obsession with vampires is rising dramatically.
The vampire represents the darker side of human instinct. The vampire represents the semi-animal-like quality that is part of our nature, but which in the cultural process of growth and development, we have had to forego. Ordinary people go see vampires because they identify with a certain collection of characteristics that they don't live out, but which are ignited in what we would call their unconscious.
The Dracula character in Bram Stoker's novel was based on the 15th century Romanian warlord Vlad the Impaler. Stoker took the ancient myths about this notorious killer and added elements of the supernatural.
Rosemary, the historical Vlad the Impaler, he was not a vampire.
Vlad Tepes was not a vampire. He was a real person, a 15th century Wallachian warlord who was a very cruel and despotic man. And Bram Stoker took him as the historical model for Count Dracula. There's only one existing account of him drinking blood, and it was the blood of one of his impaled victims. So this does not make him a vampire.
Do you really believe, Rosemary, that there are vampires, real vampires?
I do believe in the possibility of real vampires. I would call a real vampire a non-physical being, perhaps the spirit of a dead or some other kind of being that would attack the living during the day or the evening, almost what we would call a biting poltergeist.
Around the world, there are many cultures that believe that there are individuals who can fly out at night in some form. There is certainly a possibility that there are many other forms of energy, many other forms of power that we just don't understand, that may form the basis of the vampire legend and may actually form some kind of power for real vampires.
As people grow more frightened, and as the normal structures of life, society, economics become more uncertain, people get very fascinated by the supernatural. And I would place vampires in a class like that.
Sightings has discovered a subculture of people who worship and emulate the vampire lifestyle. Are these self-proclaimed vampires true devotees, or do they merely have a morbid fascination with death? There's a growing body of evidence to suggest that these modern-day vampires may do more than simply pose as blood-drinking members of the undead.
I believe in another type of vampire I call the living vampire. They'll go around attacking people, biting them on the neck, and drinking their blood. And in my way of thinking, they're every bit as dangerous as the old legendary type vampire.
In Chicago, Sightings met one member of the vampire subculture who insists he is a real-life vampire.
Most people consider me a vampire because I'm a blood drinker. I use blood to ensure my immortality in this world.
Vlad is a very interesting vampire. He's not quite like any other vampire that has ever contacted me or that I've ever studied. Vlad believes that there is a special kind of reaction he gets from the small amounts of blood that he takes.
Blood has a lot of powerful symbolism and has since ancient times. It's the life force, and anytime you consume the life force, then you enhance your own vitality. And blood also has an erotic aspect to it as well.
I feel Vlad may very well be getting some kind of special insight, some kind of special feeling from blood.
Did any of the people you spoke with claim to be dead people who were kept alive by drinking blood?
None. In fact, almost all of them apologized for not being dead.
Vlad's lifestyle may seem more theater than reality, with his $1,000 handmade porcelain fangs and sculpted coffin. But the practice of blood drinking is not an act. Vlad believes it's proof of his commitment to vampirism. But to outsiders, it appears as nothing more than a desperate attempt for attention.
What I do and why I've done it is my, I really don't care if any of you believe it or not. That's your problem.
Our long-standing fascination with vampires is well documented, but few people have carried out their fascination, drinking blood and living as vampires. What sends someone over the edge? Is it simply a need to stand out from the crowd? A deep-rooted desire for immortality? Or an unnatural need to participate in a world of evil?
To dream about vampires, to be attracted to vampires, for the culture to thrill to the idea of vampires is simply nature.
Although it may seem like pure theatrics to us, the self-proclaimed vampires that we interview insist that they have a real dedication to vampirism. Behavior experts argue that their dedication could be masking a psychological disorder, and they're asking the question, what deep need are people like these fulfilling by drinking blood and living as vampires?